Field of 5, and they're off. Heading towards the first fence, and away smartly is Dragon Ruler with Sheriff Hutton right there. As they journey on to the first, Sheriff Hutton, Dragon Ruler, End of Conversation, and Lockrask Poet is up along the inside, and to the outside Martin Plage, all over the first fence. So on towards the second of the 16, and it is Sheriff Hutton, Dragon Ruler, End of Conversation, Lockrask Poet on the inside, and the back marker is Martin Plage as they jump the second. So moving on now towards the turn, Sheriff Hutton makes the running, hands are Will Easterby, leads by 2 lengths to Joe Wright aboard Dragon Ruler. As they take the turn, End of Conversation, Dale Peters in the dark blue and red colours follows. Lockrask Poet is just in behind them for Nick Orford, and last of all Martin Plage and John Dawson. Onto the fence by the paddock, and it's Sheriff Hutton who will lead them. Dragon Ruler landing about 3 or 4 lengths down in second place around that bend. Lockrask Poet on the inside. End of Conversation drops to 4th, and Martin Plage last of all. Moving on to the first of the fences over on the far side. This is a plain one, and it's Sheriff Hutton with this lead of about 3 lengths, followed by Dragon Ruler, Lockrask Poet, End of Conversation another 4 lengths away, and that horse heads Martin Plage to the open ditch. Sheriff Hutton's at the ditch from Dragon Ruler, and up along the inside Lockrask Poet by a few lengths to End of Conversation, Martin Plage. 5 of them now galloping on to the final fence in this line, to plain fence. As they approach it, it's Sheriff Hutton, the leader, leads by 3. Sheriff Hutton over from Dragon Ruler, Lockrask Poet on the inside of Nick Orford. The last 2 are End of Conversation and Martin Plage, and now they take the turn. Making the run to the fence down the side, it's the 7th of the 16 fences they'll jump in this York Van Centre sponsored 4, 5 and 6-year-olds maiden. Going on towards this next fence, Sheriff Hutton the leader from Dragon Ruler, just backed off it a fraction in second, and then in third is Lockrask Poet, followed by End of Conversation, and finally Martin Plage. So around the turn, coming on towards the first of the fences in the straight, still Sheriff Hutton from Dragon Ruler. Lockrask Poet is on the inner. End of Conversation on the wide outside. Martin Plage held up as they approach this fence. Sheriff Hutton rising and landing in front. As they come on towards the final fence in this line, the McIver's fence, and it's Sheriff Hutton from Dragon Ruler. And then Lockrask Poet on the inside of End of Conversation. Martin Plage is the back mark of the newcomer. Heading now towards this plain one. Good jump there from Sheriff Hutton. Led Dragon Ruler, but they're well grouped. End of Conversations on the extreme outer, to the inside Lockrask Poet, and finally Martin Plage, and they've got another circuit to go. So they run to the 10th fence, and around that bend it's Sheriff Hutton and Dragon Ruler. And the Dragon Ruler right alongside Sheriff Hutton now as they head towards this fence. Dragon Ruler on the outside, Sheriff Hutton on the inner. Sheriff Hutton rising just in front. Dragon Ruler now jumped by Sheriff Hutton if anything. And then on the inside Lockrask Poet, End of Conversation to the outer. And last of all Martin Plage, only about 5 lengths covering them as they embark on their final circuit and go towards the next fence, fence number 11. Going to it, Sheriff Hutton being tackled on either side, Dragon Ruler, Lockrask Poet, and they're right alongside Sheriff Hutton, End of Conversation, just in behind them, stalking the leaders, followed by Martin Plage. They're now going to the ditch for the final time. Sheriff Hutton trying to hang on to this lead from Lockrask Poet on the inner, Dragon Ruler to the outside, and there Sheriff Hutton really didn't land running. Dragon Ruler under pressure drops the last, so going on towards 4 out, and the new leader as they go towards the 4th last fence is Lockrask Poet. Lockrask Poet from Sheriff Hutton, End of Conversation, and Martin Plage now are queuing up, 4 of them in a line going to this fence. So at the 4th last, and there Dragon Ruler was the last one to land. heading now towards the turn. 3 to jump, up along the inside, Martin Plage on the outside, End of Conversation. Lochras Poet drops to 3rd, Sheriff Hutton has dropped to 4th, and then Dragon Ruler. So it's Martin Plage on the inside of End of Conversation as they go towards the 3rd last. 3 from home, Martin Plage by half a length to End of Conversation, and they've now booted about 15-20 clear of the 3rd placed horse. And that 3rd placed horse is Lochras Poet, who's being followed by Dragon Ruler. Sheriff Hutton has pulled up, heading now towards the 2nd last, and 2 horses clear of the others then. It's Martin Plage in the blue and grey to the right. To the left is End of Conversation in the red and blue jacket as they come towards the 2nd last, and there Martin Plage ploughs his way through that fence. Martin Plage now just shifting right to his right, just across the path there of End of Conversation, but they are well clear of the others. In fact, all the others have now pulled up. All the others have pulled up, just 2 going, and it's Martin Plage coming to the final fence, over the final fence, and clear. Martin Plage on the run in, well clear of End of Conversation. Martin Plage will give John Dawson a 2nd winner of the day and wins in style. It is Martin Plage striding on up the hill, clear of End of Conversation. Martin Plage the winner, End of Conversation 2nd, and all the others are pulled up.